These are the parts for the rear panel, which goes on the back of the Ghost. This is the back half of the body, and the rear panel installs over that hole to cover that. Now, these parts are part of the rear panel, but there's also these parts right here that are part of it as well. These parts, these non-textured parts, are really only necessary if you are planning on lighting the Ghost. The idea is that these form kind of a cylinder that goes on the inside, and it fits inside this 1-inch diameter hole that's been drilled in the body. So it slides in, covers the back, but is also removable, so you don't actually end up gluing the rear panel to the body. You just slide it in. So that gives you access to the lighting that's inside, and also for batteries, if you're going to change batteries for your light. So that's the idea there. There's also accommodation for adding a toggle switch. So here I can show you the finished thing here. So this is the rear panel, and like I said, it's got an accommodation for a toggle switch, which is this little guy right here. It's slide toggle switch. You slide it back and forth to switch the lighting on. And like I said, the rear panel is removable. So let me pull that out of there so you can see. So there we go. So this obviously is the textured parts here. And then when you pull it out, you can see there's the non-textured parts here. Just forms kind of like a cylinder. There's also a little bracket that holds the switch in place. And then if you've got your lighting, then you've got a place for batteries and wiring and everything. So that's the idea. Just slides in like that. If you're not going to be lighting, then all you need is these parts here. You just assemble those, and that's enough to cover the hole in the back, and you can just glue those parts directly to this sphere. And if you're not lighting, you won't need to have this hole in the body, so it'll just be like that. You just cover these assembled pieces over there and glue it down. So this little white rectangle here on the parts, you would cut that out if you're doing the lighting, because that's where the slide toggle switch goes. But if you're not doing the lighting, you don't need to cut that out. You could just color it in black, or I think since I'm not doing lighting on this one, I think what I'll do is I will go ahead and cut that out, but then just put some black paper behind it, because I think that'll just look better than trying to color that in. And then, yeah, so let's go ahead and build this back panel. I'll show building both parts, just in case you are going to be doing the lighting, so you can see that. But we'll start with the outer part first. And then some of these tabs, there's obviously just tons of little tiny tabs here. That's just the way that Pepakura broke up these edges, especially right there. I mean, that's just, they're so tightly packed together, you can barely even see them distinguish one from another. So that kind of thing, I wouldn't worry too much about that. You can kind of maybe just do every other one, and make them twice as wide, and they'll fold just fine. It'd be obviously a lot easier. If you actually try to cut all those little strips, little tabs there, you just end up with broken shreds of paper. That wouldn't really work well. Even these, I think, are small enough that you just end up with little pieces that are going to break off. So I would do them more like these two bigger ones in the middle, like I said. So maybe just like do every two and so they're twice as wide and half as many, I think that would work a lot better. And it's still going to be pliable enough that you're going to be able to bend and follow that curvature. That's what Papercraft is doing. He's just trying to break that curvature into straight segments. And if you were making this out of like metal or something, you might have to do that. But since it's paper, it's going to be pliable enough that you can get away with not doing as small as segments there. All right, let's get these cut out. So I forgot to mention that there are some bend lines that are supposed to go across this. So this piece isn't flat. You see there's really this rectangular slot here that this piece has to become. And so there needs to be some bend lines that fold the little side flaps inward. So there's some valley folds. And then these tabs are mountain fold. They bend over at this edge here to go underneath and attach these two. So you'll definitely want to score those before you cut it out. I just made it much more difficult for myself by forgetting that those were there. So they're not right on the edge with the rectangular cutout there. They're really from kind of this vertex here over to this vertex. Okay, so this does have a slight spherical bend to it. because this edge along the top of this piece here is not flat across. So I do want to put just the slightest hint of a something like that. It's not, I don't think it's even that drastic, but that'll help, I think. Yeah. Oh wow, that fits really well. Yeah, not bad. So I've got the rear panel partially finished. This would be finished if you're not lighting. Just cover that up with black paper and glue it on. But if you are going to be lighting it, then you want to put this little cylindrical structure in the back to hold the slide toggle switch, and also so that it'll slide into the foam ball. So let's put this together. All right, so since this piece has got to fit inside of another piece, we do want to do a fit check before that's too solidly dried. So you want to check that it's going to fit inside that hole there, which it does just fine. Don't want it to be too snug. It ought to hold itself in just fine, even though it's a little loose, but not too loose. I think that's just perfect. So this piece is going to be folded into a rectangular box, and it's going to contain the little slide toggle switch, and we need the flaps to be folded outward so it leaves room inside for the switch. I think what I'll do is I think it'll be easiest to align if I make it so that these reference lines, the dark black textured reference lines, are inside the box. So I'm going to do these blue folds as valley folds, and then the red ones will be mountain folds. So this way, folding it this way with the textured reference lines inside, let me, once I mount this onto this here, essentially you just line up those lines with these lines on here, and that puts it right in the center where it's supposed to be, which helps it to line up with this and make sure that the little slide toggle is in the right spot. All right, so this has got to fit the toggle slide toggle switch. And I've got a bunch here that I ordered just for various projects. Hopefully it'll fit. You know, depending on which manufacturer they come from, might be a little different. The one that I did built here into this prototype was not one of these, like not, you know, from the same batch. That is one I actually scavenged out of a like a cheap dollar store headlamp, and this was really sized to fit that. So hopefully these ones that I've just ordered will fit as well. Looks like it might. Ooh, just barely. Yeah, it fits. Good. So hopefully you can find toggle switch just like that. I mean, these are pretty common components. You can just get these on Amazon or wherever, wherever you can get little electronics components. Just little toggle switch like that. I think the dimensions on this one, I think, are 4 millimeters. Yeah, 4 millimeters wide. About 8 millimeters long, maybe a little bit more than that. 8 to 9 millimeters long. And then I would imagine the depth is pretty standardized. There's some extra room on the depth there, so even if it's a little deeper, that should be fine. That should work. Let's see if it actually... Oh yeah, the little plastic toggle fits that slot nicely. That'll work. Okay, so this has had a chance to dry, so we're going to go ahead and install it to this. Come here. There we go. So like I said, put that texture on the inside, because if it was on the outside, I'd have to deal with the flaps. But where it's on the inside, I could just line them up directly. Yeah. Let's see if I don't know if you can see that well. So just line up texture all the way around. And that puts it right where it needs to be. All right, so when it comes time to close this up, you want to make sure you don't do that until you put the switch in there, right? Because once that's closed up, there's no getting the switch in. It's what holds the switch in place. So you want to get the switch mounted, but the switch will usually, like if it's a toggle switch like this, then it's going to have these contacts at the back. It'll either have 3 or 2 like this. So those have to be able to, the switch goes like this, goes in this way. And so you're going to have to poke some holes in that sheet of paper for the contacts to get through to the other side. So what the easiest way to do that's going to be, because that switch barely fits in there. So the holes are going to have to be exactly where they need to be in order for that to slide in. I suppose I could just cut like a slit that all 3 would pass through. Yeah, that should work. Those contacts are pretty much down the center line of the switch, so if I cut them along, cut the slit along there, along the actual reference line, poke that through without skewering myself. If you can see what I'm doing there. Okay, there we go. So that switch will, of course, need to be wired in. So you'll want to connect your wires to the appropriate contacts on there. So that's it. You just, we just apply some glue, glue it on there. More or less just lining that up so I can kind of see down the toggle, the slide down there. I can see it's all the way this way, and I can see a little bit of black rectangle from that. There we go, looks good.